What's up, Taiwan? I'm Yvonne with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has been facing a nursing shortage. Faced with low pay and poor working conditions, many have begun looking elsewhere. A union representing Taiwan's nurses took to the streets Friday to bring attention to their situation. Yvonne was there.
Taiwan's Nurses Union is here at the legislature in the capital city of Taipei, calling for better wages, better working conditions, and better ratios between patients and nurses. Right now, the ratio is 1 nurse to 15 patients. Taiwan has around 185,000 nurses, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were forced to work long shifts in hazardous conditions for low pay. That extended work schedule without a pay rise has continued post-pandemic. The Nurses Union says around 2,000 nurses have quit this year, leaving others already overworked to pick up the slack, driving morale down even further.
我们政府并没有实质的去做出了这样的一个改善，而且这次开会之后还告诉我们是这样的人数，所以我们非常无法接受，所以我们今天大家就是站出来。
According to the union, each year Taiwan sees around 9,000 nursing graduates. But hearing about the poor working conditions and low pay, only about 4,000 to 5,000 actually go on to become nurses.
对我们护理人员非常的不友善。我之前大夜班的时候，有1比甚至1比25，一个护理人员要照顾1比25个病人。
Nurses here have protested frequently, trying to draw attention to the labor conditions of healthcare workers. Unions have also asked the health ministry to provide higher wages for new nurses, but to no avail so far. Nurses who want to start families often quit because of the inflexible shift schedules. Taiwan's health ministry says it is helping hospitals improve working conditions and is even offering monetary rewards for those who stay in the profession. But unless there's any drastic changes, the union says Taiwan's nursing shortage will only continue to get worse. Alice Chen and Bing Wang in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
As Taiwan's nurses and other healthcare workers leave their jobs, one clinic in New Taipei is beating burnout by bringing in a 4-day week. Stash Butler reports.
Across clinics and hospitals in Taiwan, nurses are handing in their notice. They say they're overworked and underpaid. For this clinic in New Taipei, the remedy was simple. Keep pay the same and cut work to just 4 days a week or 18 days a month, instead of 23.
我们把所有的工作量集中在18天来做，我们的目标是1个月能够做到520个肠胃镜，我们还是7月还是做到了。
The clinic began its new work regime last month. Nurses say with more rest, they're able to provide better care.
工作跟生活是都要并重的，所以我觉得说，把工作集中之后，事实上我们效率也会提升，
可以有充分的休息的时间，然后也可以让我多陪我的家人，还有因为我有小孩。
It's the latest move amid growing calls for Taiwan to shift away from its culture of long work hours and overtime, something campaigners say is long overdue.
As a bastion of democracy, Taiwan needs to take the lead in terms of showing how it can treat workers and labor human rights in a way that allows them to live decently.
So far, the government has resisted petitions to cut down the 5-day work week. It says doing so would worsen Taiwan's labor shortages. But this pioneering clinic hopes to prove the opposite is true. Medical facilities can hold on to their nurses, give them more time off, and offer patients better care. Leon Lien and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Leaders from the U.S., Japan, and South Korea are set to meet at Camp David in the U.S. for their first ever Trilateral summit. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio are on their way to the U.S. state of Maryland for talks that will focus on security. The leaders plan to meet with U.S. President Joe Biden and will focus on establishing joint military exercises. They're also expected to discuss establishing an emergency hotline. The cooperation between the three countries comes amid growing security threats from China and North Korea. For more on this, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Riley Walters, an analyst from the Hudson Institute based in Washington, D.C.
From my understanding, this is the first dedicated trilateral meeting between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. How significant is that?
What's really significant about this is it is purely the United States, Japan, and South Korea in the room on this one. And the big issues for them, North Korea has been and will continue to be traditionally the #1 security concern for South Korea and Japan. But there is probably going to be a good amount of dialogue on China, on what it means to not just deter North Korean aggression, but the growing belligerence of Beijing in the Indo-Pacific, and what greater role that the three of us can do together.
Going forward, how big of a factor are these security threats?
I mean, the Japanese, since last year in their national security strategy, have highlighted how the security environment of the Indo-Pacific is probably the gravest it's ever been since World War II, which is pretty significant. And the Yoon administration, President Moon himself, even before coming into office, has talked about the threat that China presents to the region. Of course, North Korea, again, is their number one issue.
Aside from the summit, there's also plans to create a joint hotline to communicate in the event of emergencies. And there's also plans to establish trilateral exercises that will happen every year. How significant is that?
I think the military exercises in particular will be worth investing in. It's great that they can really lock these in now so that this momentum can continue into the next administration. The hotline is great as well, but as we've seen with the Chinese, sometimes people don't always pick up their hotlines. So it is important. South Korean officials and Japanese officials will talk, but I think the exercises really help solidify a step beyond that. It helps integrate our forces much better in the event that there ever is a contingency. The hotline is really great, though, for sharing current information and making sure that there isn't any miscommunication.
That was Riley Walters, a security analyst with the Hudson Institute based in Washington, D.C. A poll in the United States finds that half of people surveyed think the country should help Taiwan with military equipment, but there's less support for sending troops to Taiwan if China attacks. The Reuters Ipsos poll was conducted earlier this week. It found 50% of Americans support aiding Taiwan with military equipment to help deter an attack from China. 28% oppose it, but Americans appear split on whether they favor deploying U.S. troops to the island nation. 38% of those surveyed support this measure, while 42% oppose it. Taiwan's internet regulator is pledging better online access on the country's remote Taipei Island. That's after claims Coast Guard personnel stationed there are using Chinese signals, triggering national security concerns. John Van Trieste has this report.
This is Taipei Island, also known as Ituaba. It's a tiny isle in the volatile South China Sea, governed by Taiwan but claimed by China, Vietnam, and the Philippines. Here, over 1,000 kilometers from Taiwan's mainland, Taiwanese phone signals are weak. Though the island has 3 and 4G service via satellite, almost all the bandwidth goes to military equipment. There's little left over for the Coast Guard personnel stationed here, leading to claims some turn on roaming and use the stronger Chinese signals to go online. The Taiwan State Building Party has gone public with what they say is a testimony from one of these Coast Guard members. The Coast Guard says no one has to use roaming, but this recording has drawn attention to the island's poor reception and the security threat this poses, given China's claim to the whole of the South China Sea. Taiwan's internet regulator says it will urge Taiwanese carrier Zhonghua Telecom to improve service there, with more bandwidth and better infrastructure.
为提供驻岛的同仁更便捷的网络通讯服务，海巡署将持续与数位发展部、国家通讯传播委员会以及中华电信共同研议网络服务提升的方案。
But it's unclear how soon this could happen, meaning this Taiwanese outpost in the South China Sea could still have limited connection to the outside world for some time. Joseph Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
No charges will be brought against the Chinese couple accused of operating a spy ring in Taiwan. The Taiwan High Prosecutor's Office upheld a decision not to indict Chinese national Xiang Xing and his wife due to a lack of evidence. However, the couple are still barred from leaving Taiwan pending the result of a money laundering case. The pair were named by self-confessed Chinese spy Wang Liqiang, who made a series of claims on Australian television more than 3 years ago. Australia's security services later determined that Wang's story was not credible and his bid for asylum there was dismissed. Chinese property giant Evergrande has filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. in the latest sign of China's real estate crisis. The move protects the company's assets in the U.S. while it restructures its debts. Evergrande is believed to owe creditors more than $300 billion. It's the latest sign of trouble in the world's second largest economy. China's central bank recently cut interest rates in a bid to boost spending. Thor strikes again, but not the lightning-channeling Thor we know from Marvel Comics. This Thor is the Tsinghua open-pore reactor and is used to treat cancer patients. Harel Hughes tells us about one patient who traveled thousands of miles to undergo the treatment.
This is Lars Jaeger. He's a well-known Swiss author and researcher. 4 years ago, Lars was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. Unable to get rid of the tumor closer to home, he traveled to Taiwan for an experimental treatment using a nuclear reactor. And in less than 25 minutes, the operation was done.
膨动子捕获治疗，它是一个放射线的照射治疗，它是不需要动外科手术的。细胞外的这个正常细胞，因为它吃的含硼药物少，所以它的伤害性就小，那就可以达到所谓的标靶治疗的效果。
Boron neutron capture therapy is currently available at National Tsinghua University in the northern city of Hsinchu. The process is simple and low risk. Doctors inject patients with amino acids treated with isotope boron-10. These are absorbed by the tumor cells. Once exposed to the reactor's neutron beam, the boron explodes. The tiny blast kills the nearby cancer cells, but leaves the healthy ones unharmed. This is the treatment Lars traveled to Taiwan for.
他自己本身也去有搜寻这个资料知道我们台湾现在在 BNCT 治疗方面它的人数技术都是纯熟的。
The treatment uses a nuclear reactor called the Tsinghua Open Pool Reactor, or THOR, and its success rates have been impressive. So far, 60% of patients have seen their tumors shrink or even disappear completely. The facility has treated over 300 patients since its opening in 2010. That includes Lars, who is all smiles as he leaves the treatment center, thanking his medical team. Andy Shui and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's southern city of Kaohsiung is repairing damage caused by heavy rains and flooding. Continuous rainfall brought floods to several areas of the city on Thursday. Some roads were left 40 centimeters underwater. The flooding damaged road services, properties, and vehicles and covered various areas in mud. The local government has said it will review the city's rainwater drainage system. Taiwan has issued more than 13,000 permits under a scheme to retain migrant workers. Since April last year, employers can apply to allow their migrant workers to stay in Taiwan indefinitely if they fulfill certain requirements. Those include having a degree from a school in Taiwan and at least 6 years of residency in the country. There are more than 800,000 migrant workers in Taiwan, mostly from Southeast Asia. Most work in social welfare and manufacturing, but are not afforded the same rights as other Taiwan residents. A new Taiwanese supernatural mystery comedy is proving a big hit among Asian Netflix subscribers.
Hey, 老公。
The movie Marry My Dead Body tells the story of a ghost marriage between a dead gay man and a homophobic straight police officer. The two join forces to find who was behind the man's death. 36 hours after launching on Netflix, the film ranked as the most watched movie in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Vietnam. It currently places 7th in Netflix's global non-English movie rankings. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with images of 2-month-old Sumatran tiger cubs at Frankfurt Zoo. I'm Yvonne Yang. Take care, and I'll see you next time.